But first, and European Council President Antonio Costa and UK Prime Minister Andy Burnham have been in Kyiv to mark Ukraine's 35th Independence Day. This as the country is coming under even greater bombardment from Moscow. The UK is handing over to Kyiv the blueprints for a long-range missile capable of hitting targets some 240 kilometres into Russia. This is what the UK Prime Minister and the French President had to say earlier.
Vladimir has now asked that we share our Storm Shadow technology so that Ukraine can build these capabilities themselves. I am pleased to confirm today that I have approved that request. I am also asking British industry to get behind Project Freya to provide a lower-cost alternative to US Patriot systems for intercepting ballistic missiles.
Very clear about the fact that we have to accelerate the delivery of interceptors. We will accelerate on the French side everything we have available, but we will accelerate as well with colleagues the licensing in order for you to produce more of this capacity.
Joining me now from Oxford in the UK is Frank Ledwidge, a former military intelligence officer. Thank you so much for your time. How significant is the UK's decision to share the technology needed for Ukraine to produce its own long-range cruise missiles?
It's not terribly surprising, really, for two reasons. First of all, France and the UK have been sending Ukraine missiles in the dozens, possibly low hundreds, for the last couple of years. And I think that the cupboard is now dry for French and British missiles. So it makes sense for at least the gesture of handing over the blueprints of these missiles, which are essentially the same thing, Scalp for the French and Storm Shadow for the British, to the Ukrainians. And the second reason, it's simply presentational. The US did much the same for the Patriot missile system. To circle back then to your question, how significant is it? At this point, it's largely presentational. These missiles won't be online for a couple of years at the very earliest, if that, given the supply chain problems that will be faced, some of the technical issues, production line capacity, and of course, the constant Russian ballistic missile attacks, which are smashing up much of Ukraine's armament capability at the moment, as far as we can tell.
So this meeting today, the Coalition of the Willing, was it just merely political symbolism, or did something constructive come out of it?
Look, I hesitate to be negative, but I think the answer is this is simply another meeting to demonstrate and bolster support. Ukraine is, as it has been for the last 4.5 years, in some difficulty. It's as it has been, and things haven't changed much over the last few months. And I think this is a political gesture. Europe announced its anti-ballistic missile coalition a couple of months ago in July. This essentially amounts to a re-announcement, I think. And let's be frank, none of these capabilities, as I said to you, will be online for years. Ukraine's immediate requirement is, of course, for ballistic missile interceptors. That is to say, missiles that can shoot down the Russian hypersonic missiles and ballistic missiles, which are very much have the same effect, which have been hammering Kyiv and other cities without response, really, for the last 2 months. The unfortunate thing is, of course, that the stocks of these are very low.
So what military capabilities does Ukraine need urgently from its European partners right now?
You have to take them at their word. And the answer is interceptors, which is to say missiles, as I've said. Now, there are two possibilities there. The first is Patriot, which has been discussed a very great deal. And the second is a European capability, particularly a French and Italian one, which is called SAMP-T, which has similar, though not quite, at the moment, not quite the same capabilities as the Patriot Mark III, or PAC-3 as it's called, which has been quite successful against Russian ballistic missiles when it's deployed. Again, the problem is that neither France nor Italy have these missiles in sufficient numbers. We're talking low hundreds. Ukraine has asked for 300 missiles, Patriot missiles, to shoot down ballistic missiles. from the United States. They're very unlikely to get them, I think, in the near or even medium term. There is an option for the French and Italians to cobble together the remainder of their arsenal, but that, of course, would leave those countries denuded from any potential attack and remove or seriously compromise their capability. So in terms of anti-missile capability, options are very, very short indeed at the moment.
So where does this leave Ukraine as a result?
It leaves the country in a very difficult position with respect to defending itself from these missiles. These are ballistic missiles and hypersonic missiles. It can shoot down in great numbers drones and cruise missiles. Very successful at that. It's developed its own capabilities. And the West, in France, Britain, United States, and other countries, and Germany, have been very successful, and Italy too, been very successful in, or their systems have been very successful. But that doesn't solve the problem of these devastating missiles, each of which can carry about half a ton. I've been under the fire from them myself. They're extremely formidable. And it seems they've been targeting Ukrainian production facilities. We've also got coming, of course, the winter. And what Russia does in the winter, what it's been doing actually throughout this summer and spring, is also prioritizing Ukrainian power generation capabilities. And it's opinions divided. And of course, why should we know as to how successful that campaign has been? But one thing that the Ukrainians are saying is this is going to be a very, very difficult winter, partly because of the success of this Russian strategic attack on Ukraine. But let's take a step back. Strategic attack is designed to strike at the morale of the people, and such attacks historically fail. What they tend to do, whether they're directed against Germany, against Vietnam, against Japan, against Britain, is strengthen the will of the population to resist. And of course, that is what it has done in Ukraine as well.
Frank Ledwidge, thank you so much for your analysis.